Entitled SIL Seeks Custody of My Baby. The author of the post is listed in the description. Background: me, 36F, SIL, 40F. I've been married to her brother for over 10 years, and there's always been some jealousy and resentment from her. She's always felt like I had the life she wanted, not necessarily with her brother, but the marriage, family, job stability, etc. I have 3 kids, 10F, 8M, 3 months female. She got married last year, and they decided to start trying for a baby. But she was unfortunately told that she can't have children naturally. She was understandably devastated, and the family comforted her as best as we could. We recently had a family dinner, and in the middle of it she says, "Angel 698, I think it's really unfair that you got to have 3 kids and I can't have any. Your baby is my last chance to raise a child, so I think you should give her to me during the week so I can create a motherly bond with her and you can have her on weekends." Before I could respond, the entire table erupted with everyone talking at once, so I took my older kids upstairs. When I got back to the dining room, her husband was asking what the hell is wrong with her and why would she even think to ask that. She was trying to justify herself when I asked them to leave. I also said that she's no longer welcomed at my house or around my children until she gets help. She started screaming that I don't deserve my life or my children and that I stole her baby from her. Her husband and MIL kept apologizing and dragged her out of the house, still crying and screaming. Now my kids want to know why their aunt wants to take the baby. Edit. I've been reading the comments, but it's too many to reply to, so here are a few points. 1. We have a security system and cameras already installed, and no one has keys to our house. 2. I will not be able to get a restraining order as this one incident isn't enough to justify it. 3. My husband and I spoke to the older kids about it the same night, and we'll be having another talk with them to reinforce that SIL is not a safe person anymore. 4. Our country does not have the right to bear arms, and I also have no interest in getting a gun. 5. I'll be informing the school and daycare of the issue and giving them her photo. For those questioning the validity of the post, I completely understand. If I had heard about this last week, I wouldn't believe it either. But it's unfortunately the situation I'm currently dealing with. Relevant comments. More on security. We already have a security system and cameras because there's been a trend of house break-ins in our area lately. No one has the code or keys to our house, not even the in-laws, so we're safe on that front. Unfortunately, a restraining order won't happen because it will take a lot more than this to justify requesting one. We've never relied on her for childcare or pickups, so she's essentially a stranger to the daycare and school. Diagnosed as infertile after a year is pretty early. Is she sure she is? She was having issues not related to trying to conceive, and the fertility issues were discovered in the course of trying to sort out those other issues. Her tubes are blocked, and although IVF may be an option, they're not in a position to do that now or in the near future. Was her husband aware she was going to try that? He wasn't. He actually called the next day to apologize again. He said he knew she was having a hard time accepting the infertility, and they were looking into counseling for it. Your quote from her is not how real people talk. It's not verbatim. There were pauses in between and responses. So after she said the first sentence, I looked at her like WTF, then looked at my husband, and he asked her what she's talking about. She ignored him and continued speaking directly to me. I didn't want to detail every aspect of the conversation. Update. So my sister-in-law has been admitted to a psychiatric facility. In the comments of my previous post, I mentioned that her husband was seeking out counseling for them to deal with the infertility prior to this incident. After the incident, he sought out a psychiatrist rather than a counselor, and they had their first session last week. I didn't get the specifics of what happened, but basically she made some statements that the psychiatrist felt indicated she was a danger to others, my baby and me, and she was placed under an involuntary hold. My BIL has been nothing but apologetic through this entire ordeal, and he kept her away from us since the incident. Mael was staying with them to keep an eye on SIL. She tried to leave the house in the middle of the night to see her baby. Also, BIL found her researching how to induce lactation, and she said it was to make sure she can feed the baby properly when I come to my senses and give her up. From what BIL has said, seeing me breastfeed is apparently what triggered the entire episode. It was the first time SIL was around the baby for any length of time, and she was holding her when she got fussy because she was hungry. Naturally, I took her to feed her, and this made SIL feel inadequate because it triggered the thought that she would never be able to do that, which led to the events of the last post. I'm grateful for all the advice that was offered on my last post, as some of it was really helpful. We won't be moving as it's not feasible for us at the moment, but we have taken extra steps with security both at home and at the kids' school daycare. This whole thing is taking a toll on the family, but Mael, Fiel, and Bil are taking care of SIL, and my husband and I are focused on ensuring the safety of our immediate family and minimizing the effect on the kids as much as we can. Relevant comments. Therapy for the kids. My kids were able to have 2 sessions with the guidance counselor at school, one with both of them and then individual sessions, and my husband and I are looking into a therapist to have a few family sessions as well. I don't want my kids to be fearful and unable to enjoy their childhood because of this. Update. I've had a few messages asking how things are going, so I decided to update. I have not seen SIL since the incident happened, and I also blocked her on my socials. My in-laws have been amazing through this entire situation and are not sharing any information about our family with her. Unfortunately, she still remains fixated on my baby. She tried to find out where the daycare is and even threatened to hurt herself if my in-laws didn't tell her. This led to another stint in the psych ward. She wrote me a letter begging me to be fair and let her see her baby. I didn't actually receive the letter, though. My MIL read it and just gave us the gist of its contents. SIL's husband is working with her psychiatrist to see how best she can be helped, but he has said he doesn't know how long he can deal with this, but he's giving it 6 months. It's a very sad situation for her, and I had hoped she would be able to deal with whatever is happening. At this point, we're completely no contact with her. We explained to our older kids that their aunt isn't well, so she won't be around anymore. We still see MIL and Phil regularly, so I'm grateful we didn't have to cut them off. We spent the holidays with my family, and it was all very nice and uneventful. We're still on alert in case she escalates, but the hospital where she's warded isn't near us, and they don't live near us either. So we've accepted this is our new reality, and we're operating accordingly. Relevant comments. That 6 months remark. Her husband said he's giving it 6 months for her to start showing at least some signs of improvement, not the doctor. So husband would just leave. Abandon her then? Have her committed? Not everyone is equipped to help someone through a mental health crisis. I suggested a therapist to him because he's been very focused on her mental health but hasn't considered his own. Hopefully the therapist will help him deal with the situation. I don't think he's hard and fast with that timeline because he said it at a point of frustration. The counseling they were seeking out was specifically to deal with the infertility. I don't think he will divorce her after 6 months, but it's just been a lot for him to deal with. They've only been married a little over a year. Move. Moving isn't an option for us, but CIL's husband has mentioned possibly migrating with her if CIL becomes well enough. It's something they've talked about before. New update. So lots of people have been messaging and commenting asking for an update. Firstly, my family and I are safe. SIL was eventually released from hospital to continue outpatient treatment with a psychiatrist, and she's on some meds. My husband met up with her husband MIL and Fiel, to get a feel of her mental state. She was very apologetic and seems to understand the issue with her previous behavior. She asked to see the kids and I, but that was of course a no, and my husband let her know that she will have no access to us for the foreseeable future. Since she was discharged, Miel has been awesome about letting us know when she would be at their house so we wouldn't run into her accidentally. Miel also told my husband a few days ago that SIL has been saying it's hard not being able to see the kids. She told him for information's sake and not to guilt him into changing our boundaries. SIL and her husband are looking into migrating to give her some distance in hopes that it will help her healing. I'm hoping for the best for their future, but it will be a future without my kids and I in it. Relevant comments. Being apologetic while also still wanting to see the kids, those two statements don't mix. Does she think she can have a normal relationship with them now? Before all this, she was a very good aunt to my older kids. So in conversation, she asked my husband when she would be able to meet with me to apologize in person, and if she would be able to see the kids at all. He made it clear that he would be the only one she has access to. Would it be possible for her to ever foster or adopt a child? Adoption is very difficult in our country, and unfortunately because of her now documented mental breakdown, it will be impossible for her to do either one based on the requirements. How is her husband, your BIL, handling this? He sought therapy on his own and has decided to stay for now. He's pushing for them to migrate as he thinks space is needed for her to have a chance at healing. OOP's husband. My husband had been a rock star throughout all of this. He had one meeting with his family so he could see for himself where she was mentally, because so far everything we've gotten has been through MIL. They're not hanging out and acting like everything is fine. Okay, next story. I can't get over that my pregnant girlfriend stole from me. I posted here a few weeks ago about her canceling our plans to pick her sister up. She eventually came round to admitting to being in the wrong, begged for forgiveness, and told me it wouldn't happen again. I was reluctant to accept her apology because it took about a week for her to come up with it, but I took it and moved on. What I didn't mention, and probably should have, she's 15 weeks pregnant. Since then, things have been pretty much back to normal. However, Christmas Eve I discovered my clothes and trainers in the wardrobe had been moved around. Not something I'd have done. I knew she'd been wrapping gifts for her family in there, its walk-in wardrobe in the spare room. I know she can struggle for money sometimes, and my first instinct was she'd been going through it to find something to give to her brothers, as most of it still has tags on. The trainers are still boxed too. That night I, wrongly, looked through her FB Messenger, and she's taking pictures of my trainers, asking her mom if her brothers will fit them because I don't like it. I do like them, I just haven't had chance to wear it. Her reply was, "I'll wrap them up then." Also asking if the exact size I am in clothes will fit her brother was on the messages, making me think she's stolen other things. I don't even know half of the clothes I have, so it's pretty hard for me to look and know what's missing, and a lot are with tags on and brand new. I confronted her about it that night, told her exactly what I saw, that my clothes had been moved around and the messages of her taking photos of my trainers. She said her mom was asking what trainers I wore to buy me some. What she didn't expect was me to pull up the screenshots with her reply of saying she's going to start wrapping them and asking them if they'll fit her brother. She then admitted she was going to, but realized it was wrong, and it wasn't because I confronted her about it. I look at her phone yesterday whilst she's asleep to see if there's any mention of anything that's been taken, and she tells her mom he wants to keep the trainers now, with all previous messages deleted. She keeps denying it was because I confronted her that she didn't give them away, and she's denying she's stolen anything else, saying I'm blowing it up into something it isn't and she'd never steal. She says the reason she asked was because she gave a gift intended for me to her brother, but she's refusing to show me the transaction or receipt for that. Tonight, I told her unless I see proof she's bought gifts for her brothers herself, I'm going to presume she's a thief and she's stolen from me. She's adamant she hasn't and that I'm being pathetic, and she'll show me proof, but not when I ask for it and in her own time. That was the last straw for me, so I asked her to pack up and leave. She has somewhere safe to go because she can stop with her family for now. I'm being called dramatic and basically the one who's in the wrong. She's pregnant, and for the sake of the child I've been trying to work things out, but this is the last straw for me. Today she's messaging me that she's canceled the baby's scan to go away and live with her sister. I'm pathetic. She's not lying, but can't show me the receipt. And if I'm breaking up with her, she's free to do what she wants. She's saying I have no proof despite me seeing the messages. She's also saying she only considered it and stopped herself despite me seeing she'd replied after I confronted her saying she'll have to give her brother something else because he now wants to keep them. This is the way she acts to most things when she's in the wrong. Manipulation and not accepting fault for days where I'll refuse to speak to her. She is caring and hasn't really given me other reasons not to trust her, but this has broken my trust massively. How can I get over the fact that my trust has been completely broken? Edit. I know everyone is telling me to get a paternity test, and I understand why. She's never really given me a reason to suspect she's cheated. It's something I'd do now she's broken my trust, and it's something I've said in a heated argument. The problem is she's told me that if I don't believe the baby is mine, she won't consent to a test, and she'll stop any access to the baby, and my name won't go on the birth certificate. Comments commenter. She is a thief. Let her go. Do get a paternity test before you sign the birth certificate. Oop. Yeah, that's the thing. She'd never consent to that. She's told me if I don't trust she's telling the truth, it's my baby, then I don't deserve to have it in my life and she'll never let me see it. Commenter. Take her to court. Stop listening to anything she says. Commenter. You're going to have trust issues with this person. The problem now is that there's a child involved. If she can't see the error in gifting your possessions as stealing, then her reality is warped. You can either have a calm discussion to discuss what the boundaries are, like at least ask first, or consider separated parenting as an ex-team if you can't work something out here. Hope you figure something out. Oop. You're right, the child is the priority for me, but I want her to admit what she has taken. Otherwise, she'll think it'll all just blow over when from the messages I'm pretty convinced she's taken something. I even had to look at the camera I use for the dog over previous footage. She goes upstairs and comes down with 3 wrapped gifts after being where my stuff is. Even after confronting her, she's making out I'm deluded. And after telling her I've seen her already talking about taking her stuff, she just keeps saying, yeah, but I didn't. 2 months later. Long story short, my girlfriend and I have been living together for around 10 months. When she first moved in, she insisted on paying rent, and I was reluctant to charge her if it didn't work out, but she forced it and paid a month. Then I found out she's struggling for money, unable to pay for things, is in a lot of debt and lives month to month. She agreed with me that she'd start when she clears the debt. Fast forward to Christmas, I find out she's been stealing my clothes to give to her family as gifts. Another post on here. She lied for 2 weeks, blaming me, until I showed her footage of her taking the things from the camera in the living room to watch the dog when I'm out. I later then discover through letters and texts I've seen appear on her phone, she's been doing nothing to pay any of it off, so I confront her. She tells me and shows me messages that her mother and sisters constantly guilt-trip her into giving them money and have for years. They'll message her on payday asking for it, and she feels bad saying no, despite none of them ever paying it back. Her mom alone owes her over £6,000. She has taken a ton of loans out for her family, and they leave her with the debt and don't pay it back. Luckily, her credit is now at the point where nobody will loan to her, but she still tries and does it for them. I also find out, I went through her finances, yes, I shouldn't have, but something wasn't adding up and I was being lied to, that in the space of 20 minutes she spent £300 on gambling sites. All during this time, she isn't paying a penny towards rent, bills, anything. She'll occasionally buy food shopping or trips out to Starbucks. I tell her enough is enough, and she needs to start paying her way. If she can give handouts to her family and gamble, she can pay for where she lives, and she's taken me for a ride when she should have been saving and clearing debts. I make roughly 5x what she does, but I've been fair in that the bills are split proportionally to income. She'll earn £1,400 per month and pays £600, which includes rent and her share of the bills. I take on the rest, which is substantially more, but I believe it's not fair to take more. On the 1st of this month, she tells me she can't pay rent. She says she's paid out too much on our trips to Starbucks, food shopping, and I'll get it when I get it, but she doesn't understand why I need it this month when she's lived for free the past 9 months anyway. I've asked her to explain where her money has exactly gone, but she tells me I'm controlling and it's none of my business. In fairness, she will pay when we go food shopping, but rarely in comparison to me. I've kicked her out as of yesterday and told her she needs to find somewhere to live. She is, however, pregnant, and she's using that card as a way to guilt-trip me and make out I've thrown out her and my child onto the streets. In my opinion, she is taking me for a ride and prioritizing her family that is using her over her own family she's started. What's the solution here to getting her to see she's not treating me fairly? Comments. Commenter. Dude, your life is a train wreck. You will be forever tied to this mess. Commenter. She is the conductor. Commenter. At what point did you think, hey, let's get pregnant? Horrible situation. Commenter. Wow. This went from not your problem to congrats, you are tied to this woman for a minimum of 18 years. I get the feeling you want everyone to agree that your GF's life is a train wreck. It is. But you have demonstrated a serious lack of foresight and maturity for continuing to sleep with this woman after all that's happened, then getting her pregnant. You, sir, are an idiot. Update, 17 days later. Long story short, my girlfriend and I have been living together for around 10 months. When she first moved in, she insisted on paying rent, and I was reluctant to charge her if it didn't work out, but she forced it and paid a month. Then I found out she's struggling for money, unable to pay for things, is in a lot of debt and lives month to month. She agreed with me that she'd start when she clears the debt. Fast forward to Christmas, I find out she's been stealing my clothes to give to her family as gifts. Another post on here. She lied for 2 weeks, blaming me until I showed her footage of her taking the things from the camera in the living room to watch the dog when I'm out. I later then discover through letters and texts I've seen appear on her phone she's been doing nothing to pay any of it off. So I confront her. She tells me and shows me messages that her mother and sisters constantly guilt-trip her into giving them money and have for years. They'll message her on payday asking for it, and she feels bad saying no, despite none of them ever paying it back. Her mom alone owes her over £6,000. She has taken a ton of loans out for her family, and they leave her with the debt and don't pay it back. Luckily, her credit is now at the point where nobody will loan to her, but she still tries and does it for them. I also find out I went through her finances. Yes, I shouldn't have, but something wasn't adding up and I was being lied to. That in the space of 20 minutes, she spent £300 on gambling sites. All during this time, she isn't paying a penny towards rent, bills, anything. She'll occasionally buy food shopping or trips out to Starbucks. I tell her enough is enough, and she needs to start paying her way. If she can give handouts to her family and gamble, she can pay for where she lives, and she's taken me for a ride when she should have been saving and clearing debts. I make roughly 5x what she does, but I've been fair in that the bills are split proportionally to income. She'll earn £1,400 per month and pays £600, which includes rent and her share of the bills. I take on the rest, which is substantially more, but I believe it's not fair to take more. On the 1st of this month, she tells me she can't pay rent. She says she's paid out too much on our trips to Starbucks, food shopping, and I'll get it when I get it, but she doesn't understand why I need it this month when she's lived for free the past 9 months anyway. I've asked her to explain where her money has exactly gone, but she tells me I'm controlling, and it's none of my business. In fairness, she will pay when we go food shopping, but rarely in comparison to me. I've kicked her out as of yesterday and told her she needs to find somewhere to live. She is, however, pregnant, and she's using that card as a way to guilt-trip me and make out I've thrown out her and my child onto the streets. In my opinion, she is taking me for a ride and prioritizing her family that is using her over her own family she's started. What's the solution here to getting her to see she's not treating me fairly? Update. I sat her down and gave her an ultimatum early last week. I explained to her that we are a family, and became a family when she decided to have a baby with me. I told her if we're going to stay together, she's going to have to be a lot more open, contribute, and no more taking on debt she can't afford, which brings it to my door when she can't pay. I also told her I want to see her bank statements because I suspect she has a gambling problem and is in some serious debt. She agreed to all of this and committed to showing me the bank statements when I ask, and says going forward she'll pay towards bills. I believe she's turned a corner and start getting along with her better, and she moves back in. As I was sat next to her phone last night when she went to grab a drink, her phone lit up with a text message. It read, "Loan accepted by ex-lender. Click here to accept." I immediately called her out and she starts crying, telling me she has no money left again for the month, and she's had to resort to payday loans for some money. I tell her she should have come to me and tell her I explicitly said no more loans. She also tells me she won't be able to afford to pay towards bills again. She works full-time and brings home around £1,400, £1,200 a month, dependent on hours, but a lot of the time she phones sick, so gets sick pay, which is a lot less. I asked to see her bank statements, and she refuses, telling me I'm being controlling by asking when she's told me and I don't need to see them. That's the last straw for me. I'm almost certain she's been giving it away at this point again, or gambling. I give her a scenario. Your baby is starving and needs food, and there's none in the house. What are you going to do? She replies, "You'll have to pay." That's fine, I'll happily support my son, I tell her, because the mother is clearly a deadbeat. So I ask to see her Facebook Messenger to see if her family have been hitting her up for free money again, and conveniently, all of the family members that borrow from her have the chats cleared. She says she deletes them to be tidy, yet mine's still there. I told her this isn't going to work, and she tells me I'm a controlling freak, basically, and she agrees, and I've not heard from her since. Moral of the story is she's too damaged from her upbringing, I'm guessing, and some people you just can't change. She still messages me asking how I am, but I'm just ignoring her, except from anything baby-related. I need to move on. I know a lot of people questioned whether she's pregnant, how stupid I was to get her pregnant. I agree. And if it's mine. I've been to every scan, so I know she's pregnant. As for if it's mine, I've never suspected cheating, but she's a serial liar, so I will be forcing a DNA test through the courts. I posted on a couple of different subs to make sure I wasn't getting biased opinions. The above story is 100% true. I wish it wasn't, believe me, but my focus is now getting as far away as possible from her for my own sake. Comments. Commenter. OP, you gonna fight for full custody? Oop. Yes, I really can't imagine that child having any sort of life as she continues down this path. Commenter. You can get a DNA test pre-birth. Why wait? Ask her for one now. Her response may tell you something. Commenter. Please be more discerning about where you place your dick in the future. Final update. 6 weeks later. After a couple of weeks or learning she was sleeping around on family members' or friends' sofas, I allowed her back into the house given that she is pregnant. Around a month ago. Out of concern for the baby, really, given she's now 8 months pregnant. Stupid on my part, and I'm now going to explain why I regret it. I've recently moved house a couple of months ago, and she was involved in the packaging and unpacking whilst I was out, mainly unpacking. I had a pretty large stack of cash in the drawer of a cabinet in living room, around £400–500. This was a Christmas gift from my parents. During this time, I also sold a lot of old furniture, including a sofa, which she begged and begged for me to sell it to her mother. I begrudgingly accepted this. She told me her mother had asked to borrow the money from her repeatedly to buy it from me and asked if she could pay a couple of weeks after she took it. No biggie, that's fine, I tell her. Her mother collects the sofa, giving me £100 cash initially, and tells me the rest will be with me in a week. A week comes round and she tells me it'll be next month, but she's not happy as it's collapsed and I need to come take a look. I tell her it was fine, she collected it and I'm not taking a look. Basically, if you don't want it, I'll collect it and sell it to someone who wants to pay. She tells me I'm not welcome in their house. My girlfriend, ex, told her there was nothing wrong with the sofa at all when it was collected, and her mother tells her she's also not welcome. My ex then flips it on to me, telling me I'm controlling and she didn't need to get involved to fall out with her family. I didn't make her, but I told her it showed where her priorities lie when she's defending them and not wanting to get involved over them screwing me over. It was left at that. Back to the money, I went to see where the money went and searched the entire house. It's not there, but everything that was unpacked was there. Even pointless shit like a blown light bulb was packed and unpacked. I ask her where the money is and she immediately gets defensive. Tells me it's somewhere, and immediately I think, this is all the same answers as last time. It then dawned on me that the money I was gifted was in £10 notes, and the money I was part paid for my sofa was also in £10 notes, so my suspicion is she stole my money for her to hand to her mother to pay me. I've basically paid myself minus what been taken. I confronted her and she replied, even if I did admit it to try and sort things, I don't care about you anymore anyway, so I don't need to. Probably makes sense why she was trying to take a loan out roughly the same time she would have taken the money. So there we have it. I let her stop for a while, and this is where it's landed me. Her stealing again. Whilst I have no solid proof whatsoever, it could only be her that took it, and if everything else got unpacked, then she certainly took it. She's now threatening to out me to people for who I really am, a victim of theft, I guess. And she'll tell everyone how awful I am and not to bother contacting her. I've thrown her back out again for the very last time, and I'm just relieved. Not sad at all. Whilst I have no proof, her reaction is all the proof I need. Now I'm forcing a DNA test at birth and will fight to make sure no child of mine is brought up in a family like hers. She is poison. People like her don't change. They just take more. Comments. Commenter. I'd congratulate you, but you're tied to her for life, so... Commenter. Maybe not. Gotta wait on the DNA test. How do you like these stories? Write your opinion in the comments. Let's get 1,000 subscribers on this channel. Love you.